breakdown.
This is 5 Minutes with Mike, our news, our voice, and our opinion. With your host, Michael Beckford. Now stop, listen, and pay attention for 5 Minutes with Mike.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a sobering episode of 5 Minutes with Mike. I am your host, Michael Beckford, and I present to you guys today 5 black cops murdered Tyre Nichols. Today is Friday evening, January 27, 2023. I usually don't put the dates inside of my episodes, but I want to note the importance for the listening and viewing audience, because this is a date that yet again we have a history-making event and a moment in America policing and the black community. And this particular episode is going to be pretty much unscripted for the most part. I'm just got a couple bullet points I want to talk about in regards to the heinous death of our brother, your son, father, Tyre Nichols. Thoughts and prayers are with the family. And this episode of 5 Minutes with Mike is sponsored by the Urban Classics Collection. Download 12 ebooks plus 3 audiobooks, all for the less than price of a hardback book. With best-selling titles such as Down to Be Straight and thought-provoking books such as Speak Up Poetry and Dirty Negroes, this collection of books and audiobooks is great for those that are lovers of African American literature. All 12 ebooks in Urban Classics Collection is written by me, Michael D. Beckford, and link is in the description below with a limited time 50% off discount. Promo code 2023books. Promo code 2023books. That's 2023 books for 50% off the Urban Classics Collection. Link is in the description below. And welcome back, guys, to this episode of 5 Minutes with Mike. 5 black cops murdered Tyre Nichols. As I said earlier, a moment ago, that this broadcast, for the most part, is unscripted. You know, I normally sit at home and I write out a script, things that I'm going to say pretty much for every particular segment. And, you know, for the most part, this is going to be a very unscripted episode, while also, of course, keeping my composure. I believe that it's important for us as the black community and for communities of all races to know that this is not normal. I know we've normalized it. We've normalized police violence against the black community specifically, and even, of course, Latinos. But it seems like black males tend to get the worst of it, and black females. But this is not normal. Especially when you go and visit other industrialized nations and you figure out that, man, they got something they're doing right. Like, I was watching an episode earlier on YouTube. It's Indisputable with Dr. Rich. You definitely subscribe to that show if you get a chance. And one of the gentlemen that was one of the co-hosts of the show, or actually contributors, not co-hosts, contributor to the show, the young Mike White male, he said something very fascinating to me. He said that over in Germany and other European nations, they got it figured out when it comes down to traffic stops. Because guess what? There is no traffic stop. It's literally, if you ran a light, or if you have a expired tag or whatever, you get a ticket in the mail, or you get a summons to go to court. You don't have a cop that's coming up to your car with a freaking gun filled with bullets loaded and ready to go. And now judging based upon his character or whatever his previous stop was, dealing with his or her attitude. Because that's essentially what got Tyre Nichols and many African Americans, Philando Castile. I mean, I can go on and freaking on. Many of us have died to the hands of police by simple, stupid traffic stops. Like literally, if you look at most fragments, even George Floyd, if you look at most fragments of what has gone on in America, most individuals that have died by cops, and I don't have the exact statistics for you, statistic warriors, but a lot of the big time news things that we've seen running its course, those that have died by cops have died on a simple infraction. A simple freaking traffic stop. A traffic stop. A traffic stop got this young man who was less than a few hundred feet away from home calling for his mama. Home calling for his mother. A few feet away, they killed him. Brutally killed him. 5 people that look like him. That makes it even worse. And all to my first segment. These are legal gangs in blue. Now, of course, we can have the good cop, bad cop argument. If you've listened to any of my episodes, I got over 100 something episodes now between my podcast and now obviously I got the new YouTube channel here. But if you go back into my podcast, which by the way can be found on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, my father was a cop. He retired back in 2009 and he was a community police officer. Like, I'm not saying he was Mr. Perfect officer. He taught DARE and things of that nature. But I would say, like, people really looked up to him in our community. People still to this day, he retired back in 2009, it's 2023. People still to this day respect him and honor him for the position he held. And guess what? He still lives in the community, him and my mom, they still live in the community for which he policed to this day. Okay? And yeah, of course, a few times he called some people some knuckleheads, because that's what, they were some knuckleheads. But at the end of the day, my father, he coached the baseball team, he did. And I'm not saying because you do something great for kids that means you're going to be a great cop, because we see cops, one second playing with the kids doing a PAL program, the next second they shooting them dead on the street. Or beating them up to the Pope, So I'm not saying that either. But what I am saying is, because of the fact that my father was a true community police officer, he was basically right there on the streets. He was right there to the streets. We lived in the same neighborhood, grew up there. And honestly, my father, like I said, he wasn't perfect. And him and I had our disagreements and still got disagreements to this day. Father, son type of debates. But he definitely was one of the good ones. I can look back and say he was one of the good ones. And he missed out on some promotions and stuff because of some racial things back in the 80s, 90s, whenever that was, when he was a younger police officer, But he was one of the good ones. And it's a shame that, we have some of these essential legal gangs in blue, I'll never say that every cop is bad, just like not every black person is a criminal, right? But I would say, man, that there is a culture, that thin blue line, there is a culture that festers and feeds this type of mentality where you have these cops that are basically built off white supremacist ideology in blackface, right? That are terrorizing, that literally terrorized this young man in that video. I couldn't watch the whole thing. And honestly, I don't watch these. I still to this day haven't watched the whole George Floyd video because I just can't. I cannot watch another person that looks like myself get terrorized like that. Now, on to my next segment. Blackface, no mercy. Yeah, here we go again. You got basically five thugs on the force, big, bad, and bold, big, bad, and bold. And this young man that was 28, 29 years old, who was a father, a son, and everything else, his life, Tyre Nichols, his life mattered. His life is gone, and it's gone at the hands of those that look like him. In blackface, they showed no mercy. They were kicking him, pepper sprayed him, tasered him. Like every single baton, every single thing that you can imagine in that video that was just released today from the department. Everything that you can imagine, a tool that you can use against someone, they pretty much did it. Like literally, they jumped this guy. And they've had the backing of the state to do it. Now, right now, of course, if you guys have seen the updates, they are being officially charged for murder. I believe it's murder in the second degree, something of that nature. Either way, there's some charges that are pending against these officers. Okay, so of course they got to go through trial, go to court, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But right now, as we know, these black faces had no mercy. And on to my last segment. If our own can't see us, who will? It's a lot of us have marched in the streets, especially, we've saying Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and everything else. And I'm one to have too, and I'm one that believe that Black Lives Matter. But we jump up in the streets very quickly, especially when it comes down to the radical police killing of a black man, black woman, whomever, generally black boy. And most times, none is usually by the hands of a white police officer, And so this right here definitely hits different. But at the same time, I'm going to hold them to the same, if not even more, accountability than that white ignorant officer, because at the end of the day, you grew up where I grew up, dude. You grew up in the same hoods, the same town, the same places. You drink the same water. There's a culture there that you have to understand and acknowledge. And we as blacks, and just like Asians or any other community, we have a certain way, a certain swag, a certain things we do things. So what if he ran? Okay, catch him another day. Or so what if he ran? Okay, put your handcuffs behind him. Once you catch up to him, put him in a car, take him to jail, and let the court of law decides what happens next to this young man's fate. But you kill him, you murder him. I'm not going to dress it up. You murdered this guy. You murdered this father. You murdered this son. So if our own can't see us, who will? Now, we're going to get into black facts without the music in the background, because I just want to get through this. 1867, African-American police officers are appointed to police department in the Selma, Alabama, and they would be followed in 1868 by officers in Jackson, Florida, and in 1870 by officers in Houston and Galveston, Texas. In 1870, New Orleans, Louisiana has 177 African-American officers, and 3 of 5 police board members were African-American. And in April 12, 1870, sadly, Officer William Johnson of Jacksonville, Florida, becomes the first recognized African-American police officer killed in the line of duty. Now, let's take him to church. Hallelujah. The Bible says that we fight not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual municipalities in high places. I believe that these 5 officers were possessed by some sort of demonic presence in order for them to inflict that type of hurt on essentially their own flesh and blood. They may wear blue vest and a silver badge, but they bleed red and look black, just like me. And one of the best ways to help support this channel is by purchasing our newly minted merch. Introducing the Michael Beckford collection, a collection of socially conscious apparel for times like this, Get your tees, hoodies, caps, and more. Link is in the description below. And if you like this episode, please hit and like that subscribe button. And 5 Minutes with Mike is written, produced, and directed by Michael D. Beckford. All rights reserved. Copyright 2023 by Speak Publishing International and the Michael Beckford Media Group LLC production. Thank you for listening and watching. My thoughts and prayers are for the